The Norwegian company Statkraft is Europe's largest producer and supplier of renewable energy, with hydropower, wind and solar at its core. Statkraft is present in 19 countries and on 3 continents, and I wonder, when the entire world is shouting out for more clean power, how is a company like Statkraft accommodating to that request? And in particular now, in a very unstable geopolitical situation. Statkraft launched its low-emission scenario for 2021 just before Christmas, and one important take-home message is that we need massive mobilization if we are to meet the 1.5-degree target. More renewable and more electrification faster. We are in the midst of a revolution of renewables, says Statkraft's president and CEO, Rynning-Tønnesen. He is now prepared to elaborate on this from his office in Oslo, and I'm very happy to leave the digital floor to you, Rynning-Tønnesen. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to speak to you, both those being physically present and the digital audience. And we are in a situation where the world is actually switching from a dominated fossil fuel to renewable energy. So in this first slide, it's illustrating just 100 years ago how Statkraft has developed over the last years. Coming from a proud history of developing hydropower. It's in our DNA, that's where we come from, and hydropower happens also to be renewable. And from that starting point, we have developed, as was commented in the beginning here, into Europe's largest producer of renewable energy, producing also wind power and solar power, and we are also entering into the new technologies of hydrogen, and ammonia, green ammonia of course, and further into biofuels and district heating. Now let me comment on what my view is on the actual development in the world. This is our low emission scenario, but it's created to be realistic, and it's quite close to our main scenario, what we believe is a midpoint development. And to the left is electricity global development from now on until 2050. As you can see on the blue side, there's a huge development in renewable electricity. In total, the electricity demand we expect is roughly going to double from now on until 2050, driven by the green shift. I just noticed in the previous presentation from Tillman that you had 3.5 to 5 times the consumption of electricity by 2050 as compared with today. Well, we think it's going to double, but of course, if we are going to reach a net zero, it will need to increase even more, and then we are up to your scenario. We can discuss that in the debate afterwards. But this is what we think is realistic, and it could be even more. To the right, we see here what is the expected development in the global energy demand. And as we can see, we expect this to be flat. How can that be? Well, it is because electricity is so much more efficient than fossil fuels. So there is an underlying net growth in electricity demand here, but it's all taken care of by having an efficiency gain by electricity. Typically, electricity is at least 2 times more effective than fossil fuels, and if used in heat pumps for heating, it could be 3 times more effective. We also, because the largest source of renewable energy will be from solar and wind, that will lead to development where we will be more weather dependent. it also means that the world will need more flexibility, and that will be supplied by flexible hydropower, also by batteries, and to some extent natural gas. However, that needs to be limited for emission reasons, and hydrogen will come in, and flexible demand will create a much more important role than what we have today. Here we can see what we believe will be needed in a world that is close to net zero, and this is from IEA. It is still higher than what we have as a doubling, but not 3.5 to 5 times more. Nevertheless, it's an enormous increase in renewable energy also in these scenarios. Ukraine is an immense tragedy in itself. It also has the effect of changing the energy market in Europe. In Europe, about 40% of the gas today is coming from Russia. And EU has decided they want to cut import of natural gas from Russia with 2/3 this year. And by the end of the decade, it should be cut to zero, to stop buying gas from Russia. And this is a huge challenge. It means that it all needs to be replaced with other forms of energy. Some of it will be covered by more LNG imports, by ships located at the ports of Europe that can be storage for LNG, and that could maybe supply between half and a third of the LNG that is falling away from not any longer having the Russian supply as it is today. Further, it will also be a need for much more renewable electricity, but that will take a few years to construct. And particularly, there will be much more need for offshore wind, which is the largest source available in Europe for new energy, including the largest source of new energy from Norway. And it will also have the effect that there will be a shortage of gas for a long time to come. The EU is therefore considering to make a set market system for gas and taking it out of the stack to produce electricity, have a special scheme around it, and use that as a tool to get electricity prices down in Europe. What we expect will happen here is that more imports of LNG will come, that there will be a faster development of green hydrogen. There will also be more coal-fired in the short run, but less in the long run, and probably more nuclear will be kept and constructed in Europe to replace the fallout of gas from Russia. So one could say, ironically enough, that the tragedy of Ukraine is likely to speed up the green transition towards less fossil fuels, particularly less fossil fuels from Russia. The target is to buy nothing. And that will create a much larger demand than already foreseen before the crisis from renewable energy, dominantly renewable electricity, but also electricity and gas converted into green and blue hydrogen. Thank you.